Hi! In the first part of this episode, we started showing how we can use the GAIA APIs to configure and manage virtual systems. In the second part, we will continue and complete the basic virtual system configuration using direct API calls. We'll start with a simple virtual system creation with one interface and one vSwitch connection. We will choose the API from the API request list in the menu on the left. So what we see on the screen now is creating a VS with VSID 6 connected to ETH4 interface and vSwitch 500. Let's run the command and follow it on the web UI and Postman. The web UI shows the Create Virtual Gateway task name, which I just initiated over GAIA API from Postman, the ID we provided for this VS, status, and details, which states the process is completed. Sending a Show Task API request will show that the process is still in progress, and the status block will have the success message and its code. The same can be seen in the web UI in the tasks table and in the virtual systems section. To see the changes we made to VS6, we choose the Show Gateway API and enter the VSID in the request and send it. The configuration of VS6 will be returned with all its information: interfaces, member ID, which also holds any Elastic-Excel cluster data, like which site the member belongs to and where these virtual systems are located, the VS name, IPv4 and IPv6 resources, and virtual switches. That shows which interface is lined up with which switch. Now let's try something a little more complicated: creating a virtual system with two different interfaces connected to two different switches. We will enter the same parameters as we did for the first virtual system we created: the ID, the SIC activation key, and the interfaces. This is where you will start understanding the change in your work mode, since we can add several interfaces to one request, rather than having to execute individual commands. The resources block sets the core configuration of IPv4 and IPv6. Virtual switches blocks will set the vlink between the interface to the vSwitch. In case we have two interfaces and two vSwitches, the order will be respective, meaning first interface will be linked with the first virtual switch in the request, and the second interface will be linked with the second virtual switch in the request, and so on. To provide the relevant link, we must use the ID parameter inside the virtual switches block, and we specify which virtual switch ID we want to be linked with our interfaces. So what we see on the screen is that we are creating a virtual system with VSID2 connected to two different interfaces, ETH4 and ETH5, linked to two different vlinks with vSwitch 500 and vSwitch 1. Let's run the command and follow it on the web UI. The web UI shows the Create Virtual Gateway task name, which I just initiated over GAIA API from Postman. The ID we provided for this VS, status, and details, which states the process is completed. Sending a Show Task API will return the following result in Postman. You can see the process is still in progress, and in the web UI, you can see the same in the task table and in the virtual systems section. After adding, let's delete a VS by sending this API request with the ID of the VS we want to delete as the value of the ID variable, and click Send. Copy the task ID to see the progress. In the meantime, we can see the action in the web UI as well, which shows the deletion process in the tasks bar and in the virtual systems section. After the process is completed, Virtual Gateway 2 is deleted with its ID. The Show Task in Postman will display status code 200, which means the process completed successfully. What type of action we ran, message, status, and the VSID parameter. The last action we will demonstrate is deleting a vSwitch. The process is the same as deleting a virtual gateway, but remember that it would have its own API call for vSwitch delete. Change the request by inserting the ID variable of the virtual switch we want to delete. On the screen, we are deleting virtual switch 1, and again, we'll follow the process progress. And with this, we close 3 episodes of VSNext configuration. We are almost at the end of the series, so join us for episode 8, which will cover the connection and configuration in the management console. Thank you for watching, and see you soon.